And welcome back. So for today's episode, I'm just so excited to have on our next guest. I had the chance of the pleasure of working with him back in LA on a Western years ago, and you were just in for a treat. Okay, so his name is Hiram A. Murray. He is a professional actor, but he also worked for the NYPD and previously was a captain in the US Marine Corps. So I'm just so excited to hear all about his journey and how, the intersectionality of everything. And it's going to be a really fun interview. So please, actually, I almost forgot. You can follow him because I always love to say this at the beginning and at the end. Hiram, where can we find you again?
Across all social media at Hiram A Murray.
Did you see that? Look at that. Across all social media at Hiram A. Murray. So thanks. Give a warm welcome to Hiram A. Murray. Yay.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah. It's nice to see you. It's nice to not be in the scorching heat, and it was a fun experience back then. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna like dive in with the biggest question of tell us how you started and just whatever comes. I don't even know how to start here. There's so much that I want to talk about with you today.
So, how I got started in the industry?
Yeah.
I born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and back in New York, when I was 17, I got started. I started doing like music, being background on like music videos and commercials and stuff like that. And then in 1999, I was 18. I got into my first television show on CBS. It was called Now and Again with Dennis Haysbert. And just my experience of, like all the music videos, all the commercials, and then, being in a television show, I fell in love with the overall, aspect of like making film and television. So I decided that I wanted to go to school and learn it.
Mhm.
So I went to CCNY, which is City College in New York, for City University of New York, and I studied filmmaking. I got a degree in film directing and screenwriting. And while I was in school, I was also working for NYPD, and 9/11 happened on my watch in my backyard, and so I decided that I'm going to put everything on hold and I'm going to go serve my country.
Wow.
And as soon as I graduated from school, I accepted my commission in the United States Marine Corps, and I went on to serve in the Marine Corps from. I entered the Marine Corps in '03. Yeah, 2003. I left active duty in '08 and dropped down to reserves. And then I was reserves from '08 to 2012. While I was in the reserves, I moved out to California. And I always knew like, hey, I'm going into the military to serve my country, especially for what is going on. But I never wanted to make it a career. I never wanted to be a general or anything like that. And as soon as I picked up captain, I was gonna go to MARSOC, but then my wife and I, we just had our third kid at the time. MARSOC is Marine Special Ops Command, and my deployment cycle and op tempo would have been a lot higher, and my wife kind of wasn't feeling it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So um, she gave me, as an officer, 80% of your time is dealing with your Marines and the stuff that they do, and I used to always give this speech to my Marines, especially those who, weren't doing what they had to do. Excuse me one second.
Of course.
Those who weren't doing what they had to do or were neglecting their families or anything like that. And I would always tell my Marines, the Marine Corps was there before you. The Marine Corps will be there after you. Your family's all that you got.
Mm.
So when MARSOC came around, and I just got recruited to it because I was a brand new captain, and my wife found out like what my op tempo was. She was like, wait a minute, the Marine Corps was there before you, the Marine Corps will be there after you. Me and the kids is all that you got.
Oh, smart. I like it. Right, because that would have meant you would have been, just to make sure I followed, you would have been gone deployed a lot more. You wouldn't have,
Oh yeah.
she almost would have never seen you,
Yeah,
right?
she never saw
Or
me.
with 3 kids already, right?
Yeah, 3 kids already.
Yeah.
Actually, 4 kids, because Alexander was our 4th kid at the time. So she had just had it.
Oh, holy cow. Okay.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
she's like, nah, I'm not playing that.
Mm.
And so I knew that eventually I was always going to get back to my first love, which is filmmaking and acting. And it just so happened that at this time, and I don't even know if they do it anymore, but LAPD used to travel to different military bases and recruit people who were getting out the military
Oh,
because
wow.
I already had a top secret clearance, I'm physically fit, stuff like that. So it's an easy transition, to being a police officer from a Marine. And they offered me a job before I even left service. They were like, okay, whenever you're ready, here it is. Like I flew to California for 2 weekends, one weekend to do like the written test and then a polygraph. And then I flew back another weekend to have one-on-one with the psych and just an oral interview. And then they handed me my letter of employment and was like, hey, when you come, it's all you. So I had a job and it brought me to California, LA, which is the mecca of
Right.
film and television. So like God let everything happen for a reason, and I left and I did that. I worked for LAPD from '08 to 2015, and then all the while I was still working in the industry, and it just so happened by the grace of God, I got to a point in my career where I didn't need a survival job anymore because, between constant work and residuals, I was making enough money to take care of myself and my family. And I've just been doing that since. So I've been a full time actor since 2015.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. There's there's so many things I want to ask you about that. Like,
Ask them all.
I
Ask them
know,
all.
I know. I'm like, where do I start? Okay, I just might give you just one massive question, which listeners know I sometimes do. I get excited. I'm like, here are 50 questions at once. Um, okay, so a few things I'm thinking about, like, what was it about film and TV that made it that thing that was your first love, especially growing up in New York? Like, you have access to so much. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what was it about that?
Well, it's funny because, like, yeah, growing up in New York, you have so much access to stuff. Like, I watched television and movies, obviously when I was younger, but it wasn't a main focus because growing up in the '80s and '90s, everyone was outside. We're all playing. We're playing stickball in the neighborhood or football or riding our bikes or doing whatever or traveling all over the
Mhm.
city. Like the whole city was your playground. I mean, I don't think it's as safe as it is today as it was back then, but
Right.
like I didn't have a curfew as long as my parents knew where I was, or you know maybe when I was younger you had to be inside before the street lights turned on.
Right.
I
Was
was
it, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
yeah, but that was it. As long
Yeah.
as you knew where you were,
Right. Right.
I remember when I was like 16 years old, I would there used to be this arcade in Times Square called Barcode, open 24 hours, and it'd be like 2 o'clock in the morning, and hey, me and my friends will get on the train, go to 42nd Street, and go to this arcade and play video games in the night. I New York City it truly is the greatest city, and it was like the greatest place to grow up during the '80s and '90s because the whole city was your playground.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry, I just went off on my childhood. What was the question again?
Hey, this is what
Oh, what
happens,
got
man.
me?
Yeah, we find these tangents and we find some gold in there. Yeah, you've
What
had
got me to fall in love with it?
yeah.
It's the same thing that it's the same love that I have for it nowadays, and what propels me to this day is I love being a part of different stories. I love telling stories that influence people and brings them happiness or gives them insight. Our profession is the one profession that no matter what's going on in someone's world, when they sit down to watch us, like they leave all their cares and worries aside, and then for that half hour, if you're watching a show on television, or the 2 hours that you're sitting in the theater, you are in our world. And
Hmm.
the words and my actions influence who you are and change who you are, hopefully for the better. So that when it's over, you leave having a new perspective or a new outlook on life. That's to me, that's the only profession that does that. Like we reach, and our reach, it is so wide. You reach the masses, millions and millions of people, all from all over the world. You know,
Yeah.
it's great. I love that. I love being able to touch someone and, you know, changing their mindset. You know, like, oh well, such and such culture is this way, or such and such person is this way, and then when you sit down and you watch a movie, it was like, oh, I didn't know it was like that,
Right.
and you change your outlook. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. That's so important because it's so easy. It would be so easy for us to think everybody's experience is the same way that ours is, or our little community is, if we're not exposed to more things. And it's just a great way to let people
yeah,
see there's more life out there.
exactly.
There's other circumstances you may not be aware of, you know. Like sure it makes sense to you because you're living your life, but maybe you see it from somebody else's perspective. It makes sense to them. Yeah.
We all live in a bubble, and more so now that, you know, because of quarantine
Right.
and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like people view. So like when I play a character on television, right? I draw from all my experiences in life, right? So when I play a police officer, it's like people have this notion that, okay, police officers are like hard nosed and they're this and they're that, or military members like that. But I come from, or I bring the experience of, hey, I'm a husband. Hey, I'm a father of 6 kids. I'm a son. I'm an African American man in America dealing with all that stuff, and wearing the uniform, you know. So like I have two aspects to it, you know. Like I deal with my brothers in blue, but I also deal with my community, you know. So I
Yeah.
bring a different point of view to it, and, you know, being in this career, I'm allowed to share that point of view, and hopefully, you know, enlighten people.
I love that. I just want to take a moment to repeat that being in this profession, you are allowed to share your perspective and given people
Yeah.
help people have another point of view. I think that's such a huge thing because like how often is it we're not allowed to share or we feel like we can't, you know, it's not the place to share, or if we do share what we really think or our experience, we might be negatively impacted. People might get offended, you know. Yeah.
Hey, you have a choice. Either you keep watching whatever I'm doing, or you change the channel. Or you turn off the movie.
Right,
You know,
right.
like I don't, you know, I if I offend you, you know, one, that's not the
Yeah.
goal, and two, you know, hey, you have the choice. You're the one that chose to sit there and watch that. I didn't put a gun to your head and say, hey, watch my television show or watch my movie.
Right, right. Yeah, no, you didn't. So thank you for not doing
Yeah.
that. I mean, because oh, actually, and you do have a movie right now that's playing on Amazon Prime.
The Great War.
Hmm.
That's great. It's a World War I film about a it's about the Buffalo Soldiers, and they fight behind the Buffalo Soldiers was an African American, all African American army unit that fought viciously, and you know, was one of the best fighting units in military history. And in the film, I get separated from them at the beginning of a battle, and they fight further behind enemy lines than any other American unit. And now the armistice is approaching. It's the end of World War I, and the military, the powers that be, they don't want my unit to be captured, because it would be bad publicity that an all, you know, black unit got captured behind enemy lines. And at the same time too, they don't want, it's a double-edged sword, because they don't want the bad publicity that an all black unit fought further in
Oh
than
wow.
any other unit. So they send they send a all white unit to go find my unit and bring them back, and they use me because it was my unit, and I knew where their last location was. So we set out. The film is us trying to retrieve my fellow brothers in arms, and chaos ensues, and that's that.
Oh wow. Wow. Yeah, I feel like you're saying you bring all your experience to the table. You definitely would be able to bring an extra level of humanity It's playing
Yeah,
those
you
roles,
bring
right? So
the funny thing about it too is like even in my real life, in my military experience, I was the only black officer in any unit I've ever served in. I wish I'd have thought about bringing this to you, but even in my boot camp picture, you will see there's two black people, myself and one other black guy, but he we were doing like a what's the right word? Uh, he was from Senegal, so we were doing like a trade program where
mhm.
we'll send a Marine to Senegal and they'll send one of their officers to train with us. An
Oh,
exchange
exchange.
program.
Okay, yeah.
That's what it was. And we're the only two
Oh,
black guys in
wow.
the picture, So it, like my real life art. This was the case where art imitates,
Yeah.
real life. So yeah, I bring that experience, like sometimes, not to say that, I've had racist experiences, yes, did I have some? Yes, but the majority of my military career wasn't like that. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I still was the only person,
Yeah.
So like I drew from that experience and brought it to this film where I'm the only person in this unit that actually understands where I'm coming from, has my own life experiences and my outlook on life.
Right. Right. Yeah. And what do you like? Are there any things in particular that would be helpful for people to know of what's like interesting, strange, uncomfortable, or just like life lessons from being in that sort of position?
You know, it was okay. I'll share this story with you. I'll share this story with you. And yes, this was kind of a negative experience. However, it set me up with determination and a mindset in order for me to be successful. So while I was in boot camp, I had three drill instructors surround me, right? And they were all wearing stogies, their brims, and they were, kind of like chucking me and hitting me with the brim of their hats. And they were like, "Well, can I curse?"
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, fuck you up. You think you're tough. You think you're from Brooklyn. Oh, because you're badass. Whatever. I'll fuck you up. Blah blah blah. And they were hitting me and hitting me and hitting me while I was standing there, right? Just trying to get me to lose my bearing.
Mm.
Okay. And I almost coming down to the end of it, lost my shit, right? But I didn't. I held my tongue and I took and I stood at attention the whole time while I was getting hit with the stogies, right? And then a
Is
black
that Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, is that like a typical thing that they would do in that sort of boot camp to everybody, or was it they really were more singling you out?
I didn't see them do it to anyone else. I mean, like
Okay. Because
the
like all I have to go off of are like military movies,
yeah, I mean,
where
like
I see
don't
stuff.
get me wrong. The Marine Corps is the toughest and the hardest of all military branches. Okay, we have the longest boot camp. Where all different military branches, every other military branch, when you go in, they train you to do a job. So, like, if
Yeah.
you're a cook in the army, okay, we train you to be a cook. You don't really have any like tactical experience or anything like that. Whereas in the Marine Corps, every Marine is a rifleman, every officer is a rifle platoon officer. Like everyone has to know all fighting, all weapons and tactics and stuff like that, because we're the first ones to go in
Wow.
any
Yeah.
armed conflict the country has. The Marine Corps is the first one to go in and stuff like so. We train differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, it's the most brutal of training.
I assumed that it was not typical to that level, but I just want to make sure I was right and that everybody else was understanding.
But
Okay.
so
Yeah.
the thing, it was the first time in my life I ever heard the term the good old boys club. Okay.
Oh, mhm.
And a black gunnery sergeant walks over to me after he saw what was going on. And he said, uh, do you know what they're trying to do? And I said, no, gunnery sergeant. He was like, they don't want you in their club. This is their club. This is the good old boys club. And they're going to do everything they can to make you wash out. Do you see any black officers? And at the time, I've never seen a black Marine Corps officer.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't. I said, there's a reason why. Don't let them win. Don't lose your bearing. Do whatever you have to do, but don't let them win. And my father-in-law, who is a sergeant major in the Marine Corps, he's the one who dropped me off to boot camp, and he gave me this one piece of advice, one that I, to this day, it like that piece of advice, which I'm about to tell you, like it shaped me into a different person. And to this day, I use it for everything. And that piece of advice is this: they should get tired of dishing it out before you ever get tired of receiving it. They will get tired of doing all the evil stuff, all the bad stuff to you before you ever get tired of receiving it, because it's all just a mental game, you know? And so that changed my mindset, because whenever, you know, punishment was being doled out to me or whatever, and the other Marines or whatever, and I was going through it, and I'm like, man, I hate this. This sucked. Oh, I would say to myself, at some point, it has to end. And I'm going to keep going until they get tired of screaming at me. I'm going to get tired. I'm going to keep going until they get tired of giving me push-ups or giving me punishments or whatnot. Let you get tired of speaking, and then, okay, it's going to be over. So I took that advice and I just forged through. Never let anything bother me, and that's the way I am to this day. I have in this industry, you have to have a certain level of mental and physical toughness, because you'll get a million no's before you get that one yes, right? So I took that into the film industry. They're gonna get tired of saying no to me before I decide to quit. So it's like, good, say a million no's. Give me one more or whatnot. One day you're gonna get tired of saying no, and then you're like, all right, yes, go ahead, and boom.
Right. With every no, your power increases.
Yeah, go ahead, come on,
like,
keep on.
You just keep getting closer. Yeah.
Keep it coming.
That's such an important outlook. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Because I'm thinking, like, I feel like for a lot of actors, they spend a lot of time in the first part of their training and learning of that, like, emotional availability and being like super vulnerable, and then they have to like toughen up the thick skin to being able to withstand the nose. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it would be really like great to have like a balance, like maybe a little bit earlier.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So when I left the Marine Corps and I moved out here to California and I joined LAPD, I said to myself, you know what? Because I was gonna get back into my filmmaking side, because remember I said I went to school for film directing and whatnot, and I started working on sets out here. Excuse me, and I started noticing that directors would they start filming, they'll stop, and then they'll talk to the actor, and I was like, no, what I really want is this, and could you do it a little bit more this way, because I'm trying to. And 9 out of 10 times, as soon as the director would walk away, the actor would be like, this fucking idiot, he doesn't even know what he wants, or and I never wanted that to be me, right? So I was like, you know what, before I get back fully into like directing and stuff like that, I want to take an acting class so that I know how to, converse with my actors, convey exactly what I want them to do, so everyone could just get along and get the project done, right?
Yeah.
So I did my research and I was like, what's the best acting school I can do out here? And one school kept coming up all the time, and it was the Joanne Baron D.W. Brown Acting Studio in Santa Monica, right? And anyone has had something to do with this school. Holly Berry, Robert Nero, like all these people, have, whether they studied one class here or they did, like everyone just kept coming back to the school. Robin Wright, and just a ton of people, Tom Hanks, And so I said, okay, it's a 2-year acting Meisner school, right? Conservatory. And I did the first 6 weeks, right? So you do a 6 weeks program, and if you pass that and you're good enough, then they invite you to do the first year program, right? And then if you are good and whatnot, then you move on from your first year program to your second year program, and you complete the whole program, right? And so I did that, and I started actually in my after the 6 weeks, you know, um, I was good enough to get invited to the first year program, right? Now, during the first year program, here's the funny story I was telling you about that mental toughness and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember up until that moment. So this was 2011 is when, no, 2011, I think I graduated. So like around 2010, right? So I remember the last time I cried, and that was 1999. That was when I had my son. After that, because I was a police officer, went to the Marine Corps, police officer. There's no room in those professions for crying. You
Yeah,
have
I
to
was just thinking, right.
separate
Yeah.
your emotions
Yeah.
from everything, because as a police officer, you deal with humanity at its worst, and
Yeah.
in the military, oh God, you just see you see the world at its worst.
Yeah.
So there's no time to get wrapped up in your emotions, because it could be the split decision between life and death. you
Mm-hmm.
know so you learn to compartmentalize your feelings and just march on to mission success, right? I did not cry or have time for crying since 1999, right? That was when my first son was born. Tears of joy, I remember specifically. Never shed a tear from 99 until 2010. But that hardens you, okay? That hardens you. And so one of the first exercises in the Meisner technique is the repetition exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about listening and being present in the moment, right? So, it'd be like, I like your shirt. And you repeat back to me,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you
I
like my
like your
shirt.
shirt.
I like your shirt. I like your shirt. And it's
Mm-hmm.
and it's all the goal is to pay attention to how your partner is responding to you, so you respond in kind, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what's going on. Well, this was me. Here I am, Marine Corps captain, police officer. I like your shirt.
I like your
My
shirt.
shirt. I like your shirt. You like my shirt, and it was just like that, and it was driving my instructors crazy that break me.
Yeah.
And so it was their goal to break this wall that I had when it came to my emotions. And in my second year, in your second year of training, you do what's called Spoon River Anthology, right?
Okay.
Anthologies. And basically it's a book, right? And in the book, you have it's this town called Spoon River, and everyone in it is dead, right? And you, as the audience, you sit there, and the ghosts from the people who live in this town come and they tell you their story
Mm-hmm.
as to why they're dead and what's going on. So my instructors gave me a messed up story that they knew would
Ooh.
have to break me. So I was a father who lost my job, lost everything in life, and now my family and I were going to be homeless. And I decided that instead of putting my family through that pain of being homeless and living on the streets, that I was going to go home and kill all of them and myself. Despair.
Oh my goodness.
So I had to emotionally prep, and they knew I had children. So in
Uh-huh.
my mind, I had to emotionally prep going home, killing my children, killing my wife, and then killing myself, and then come back to explain to you why I thought that that was a mercy kill.
Mm-hmm.
So the emotional prep for that, it just destroyed me because I'm visualizing my kids, and stuff like that. And from 1999 until 2010, that was the first time I cried. And after that, it was just downhill from there. I can cry on command now.
Right. You have opened yourself up to that
Yeah, I've
pathway.
opened the floodgates,
You've opened it. Oh man. Okay, so there's like a couple things in there. One, so what you remind me of is back in undergrad, I played in the chorus of Medea, which I've
Hmm.
mentioned that play a few times on this, but the director wanted us to do visualization, to imagine, and he had it be about family members, and like I don't need I did not serve in the military. I'm the youngest sibling. I'm also a cancer. I was just like,
Hey, we're
that's
cancers.
right, cancers. That's right. We have emotional gifts.
Yes,
There's a
yes.
reason that some of the best actors in the world are cancers. Hey, I'm not
There
tooting
you
my own horn. I'm just saying we do have, you know. So I and like from a young, like I'm comfortable with being I'm comfortable with being sensitive. I'm comfortable with that. Um, because well anyway this is I'm tying into like the other idea I wanted to talk to, which is about survival too, so I'm just putting that over here for now.
Okay.
But anyway, like the advice the director gave me for me was bad because it didn't take me, I didn't have to imagine that to get there. So because I imagined it, I was like wrecked for almost a week. And so I just think it's one of those things with taking a note and knowing what to visualize, where the actor really needs to know what's safe for them and what works for them and what they need. And if a director knows them, they'll know. But if they don't know them, I think as an actor you also have to have your measures for safety. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, was the director telling you to think about like a old memory or something like that?
No, it was, and so that's the thing, like I'm not, I just found it to be a really interesting story like what you shared, and
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure to, talk more about it because I think in your case, like you said, that's kind of what you needed, that the instructor saw that they needed in order for you to get to this like more emotional accessibility in your acting, right?
Mhm.
And that's like the level that it went for it to happen. And it seems like you felt safe during that experience.
Yeah, so this is why I love the Meisner technique. Like that's my primary
Mhm.
style of acting is Meisner because it's all from an imaginative place, you
Yep.
know? Hell, acting itself, the definition of acting is living truthfully during imaginary
Mhm.
circumstances. Okay? And so like I've studied other techniques because you try to be as well-rounded as you possibly can, have multiple tools in your tool belt to draw from.
Mhm.
Uh, However, Meisner technique for me is the most healthy of all techniques, okay? Because it's all imaginary. Like I don't have to remember a time when I was abused as a child to although I wasn't abused, I'm just saying.
No,
Uh,
I hear you.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for
I know between action and cut, I'm in that world, and the moment it's cut, I pull myself out.
right.
I have to, and my life experiences to help me with that.
Mhm.
It's like being a father, being a police officer, you coming home. Like I know that before I cross that threshold of my home, I have to leave everything at the door. I can't bring that world,
Right.
wife and kids.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I love learning the Meisner technique as well too. So it's not, I'm not trying to say there was a right way or a wrong way in terms of the
Oh no.
instructor. Okay, cool. So we're on the same
Yeah,
page.
yeah, yeah. No, no, no.
It's
That's
just
why I said
like,
for me,
yeah.
like I said, that's why I said I've tried various styles, but
Mhm.
for me, my primary style I go to because for me, it's more healthy for an actor. You know, hey, go do that. Imagine this. Have your emotional prep for that. I'm not asking you to think about a time you were abused or anything like that
Right.
because it's a drawing from your own personal experiences to invoke an emotional response is the equivalent of, hey, I have a cut here and I'm gonna rip the scab off just so I know what it's like to bleed. And every time I need to do a scene where I need to know how to bleed, I'm gonna open up a scar or something like that. No, the hell? No,
Yeah.
I can use I can use what I see other people going through, my research. I don't have to.
Right. And you can imagine that.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine that.
and you can imagine it safely. And I think it's I think pretty much any technique can be taught in a way where it is damaging, or the person, the way they interpret it, the way that it comes through them, it's
Mhm.
damaging or it helps them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I find that, yeah, I just find that to be, yeah. Yeah, no, because the thing with that, I'm jumping back to that one show, it was only imagination. That
Mhm.
was it. There was no emotional recall or this or that. But I think it's just knowing what works for you and knowing what you can and can't imagine. So for me, there are certain things that are off limits for me to imagine it because I'm like, listen, director, you're going to get this result if I imagine X, Y, and Z, but not if I imagine this other thing. Do you know? So it's just
Yeah.
like knowing what works for you and what's safe for you, and that actually lines up with what they want.
And this is why also too I encourage actors to live life. You need experience. You need experience. There's no greater teacher than experience. You
Hmm.
know, if I don't know, like, okay, I don't know what it's like to be a parent, right? But have you ever went to a park, a playground? You see, kids playing with their parents. You go to family functions. You see family members dealing with,
Right.
with their children. You like go out there, experience life in order to fill yourself up.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly, and draw from that. And
Yeah.
so the thing about the emotional recall that you were talking about, I honestly think it comes more down to um people do that so that they know where their body is. Like I think it's actually can be a healthy thing to do as long as you don't stay there too long. Like if you use it for like the initial hit of like I can relate to this, I know like this gives me this information of it, but you don't play the scene
No,
from
no,
that
no, no.
spot and you
Just
don't like delve into it. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of like going on a tangent.
No, 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 no.
Yeah,
I get exactly what you're saying. Like, okay, I
like
remember
depending on the
dealing with that
actor. Yeah.
situation. I don't want to live in that situation the whole time to
Right,
go
because
where I
then
need to go.
and then also it's not even about the scene, it's not about the character, it's about you.
Yeah.
So it's, it's helpful to a point and then it can be destructive and but okay, so the survival thing.
Okay.
That's that's what okay. The more I study acting or do acting and this and that and watch movies and watch the news and blah blah blah, it makes me think of that whole nothing is right or wrong, only thinking makes it so. Except for murder, you guys don't murder. Like there are certain things that are just wrong. But that William Shakespeare quote, right? Because when you're saying when you were a cop, when you were in the Marines, there was no space for that emotional like outpouring,
Right.
right? And I think that comes down to survival. And same thing for actors. Like, why are actors so emotionally accessible? Well, because it's survival for us. We have to be in order to do our jobs,
Right.
you know? And so um I just think I think it's useful for everybody to have that skill set of when do they get to be in touch with their actual emotions, and maybe they're not going to like, always show it every day or at the grocery store, but like you just know it's there. Like that you can release it when you want to. You don't have to do a major, excavation to get down to like letting out your feelings.
Yeah. I mean, it's also helpful too. Like, I don't. Let me be very clear. I don't want people to think that the military or law enforcement, trains you to be a robot. It trains you though to put certain things, aka your feelings, on the back burner to accomplish a goal or a mission. Now, my training in acting, did that help me become a better officer in the police department? Hell yeah, it did. Because one, it allowed me to tap more into my empathy for people. I show up to a radio call and you you have a woman, a domestic, if it's a domestic violence situation, and you show up. The funny thing about, it's not sorry, poor choice of words. Not the ironic thing is that you'll have a victim call the police, man or female, because I've arrested both men and women for domestic abuse. You will have a victim call the police, and the irony of it is that once the cuffs come out to take away their loved one that was the abuser, then they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this person to go to jail." Or sometimes they themselves even become violent with you, and then you end up taking both of them
Oh,
to
wow.
jail. It's so it it's so easy for you to, if you take the emotions out of it, for you to be like, what the hell with this situation. If you don't want my help, then you deal with it, or leave. But the empathy, empathetic part of you is like, I understand why you're doing this. You might be thinking, wait a minute, this person is the sole provider for this family, and now I'm putting them in jail. And am I am I doing more of a disservice to the family because I called the police or whatnot? So like you understand, and that allows me to converse with you better, to communicate with you better, knowing where you're coming from, and then to also speak to you and be like, hey, I understand why you're saying this, but there's no way in hell that this gives him permission to abuse you or justifies it, you know? But because I have that level of empathy now, we can have that conversation versus, just making it black and white. He did this, he's going, I don't care what you say or whatnot. Or
Yeah.
you talking with a kid, Like I remember one of the one of my best experiences being a police officer was I got a call for a missing persons, not a missing person, runaway. This 14-year-old girl ran away from home, and I ended up finding her about 4 blocks away from her house, right? And technically, I found the kid, case closed, right? Return him home. But the me being a dad,
Right.
me having empathy, I said, my partner was like, all right, we're ready to go. We found her. I was like, well, hold on. I want to talk to her. Like, what is causing you to want to run away from home? You know, because if we don't address the issue, I'm just gonna get a call tomorrow. Hey, come find me again, type thing. And I
Yeah.
sat down and I spoke with this girl, and for 4 hours, 4 hours out of my 12-hour shift, I spent with this little girl, just talking with her. And we bonded over Spider-Man. She liked Spider-Man. My kids like Spider-Man, and I gave her some Spider-Man stickers I had in the car and stuff like that. And, you know, sitting down with this girl, and here's how it ended up being my best experience. So, I talked with her and I gave her a different outlook on life, from a parent's point of view and what we want for our kids,
Mhm.
only wanting the best for them, and maybe you're not understanding that at your young age because, you're new to the world type thing.
Yeah.
This girl went from a straight F student to a straight A student, and her mother came to the police station, brought me a copy of her report card and a card that she wrote, telling me thank you for spending time and steering her in the right direction. To this day, I have that hanging in my office, and that was probably 10 years old, whatever. Like
Wow.
that's my best experience being a police officer. Is like I took the time to talk to this little girl and I changed her life. She went
Yeah.
from being a runaway and failing all her classes and hating her parents to being an obedient girl, not running away anymore in school, and a straight A student because she had a different outlook on what her parents were trying to do, which
Yeah.
brings it all back full circle to why we even do this job as an actor, because my goal is to hopefully give viewers a different outlook on life, to enlighten them, entertain, and hope
Yeah.
change them for the better.
That is such a great story. It really is. That's beautiful. Yeah. It's always good to remember like the bigger goals, the bigger like the real like jewels of the work, you know? Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to definitely ask you. I'm always surprised by how quickly these go. I wanted to make sure to ask you because I saw that you had posted something about this book on voice, right?
uh,
And how you've had certain vocal changes as you've navigated different professions, and if you could talk a bit about that, how it's informed both your professions and also your relationships, or just anything from that.
so Denise Woods, she's the author of book. I believe it's called The Power of Words. Hold on. I want to say it correctly because that's something that I think everyone should read. Um, everyone should read this book, and I'll give my own the power of voice, the power of voice from Denise Woods. Okay, Denise Woods. She's my vocal coach, and I was introduced to her from my instructors over at Baron Brown. Um, and it was one of those things too because he's so rigid in the way he talks to people, and as a military officer, especially a Marine Corps officer, and a police officer, you have to maintain a commanding presence at all times. I need to be able to tell you to move over there without you questioning or feeling that I'm unsure of the commands that I'm giving you. Okay. So that's ingrained, instilled in me, and it was the same way. There was no on and off switch.
Right.
Okay. So I brought that home. I brought that to my work, and being in command, being in control of my voice and knowing when to shift from when I'm talking to a child, from to when I'm talking to an adult, from when I'm talking to my wife, which is my lover, my the mother of my children, to talking to my my teenage son who's being a little shit because because he's a man. It's that all those situations require a different voice, and I did not learn that at the beginning. It was just one way. And so going through this vocal training with her, I you know, I you could hear the empathy in my voice. You can you can hear the different relationships in what you and I were friends. So we, like I'm talking with you, you're not a stranger to me versus, hey, what's up? I'm a little where's this going? I don't know you. I don't know your intentions. First of all, like all those situations will require or have a different voice.
Yeah.
And I learned that through my training. And it made me a better husband. It made me a better father. It made me a better actor. It even made me a better police officer at the time because not every situation or every police call requires you to be the whole time. It's like, like I was the cool cop. Like when people met me, like if I saw someone doing something stupid, I'd be like, why are you doing that? Like that's the first thing, is why are you doing, like, I understand people are young and stuff like that. Like I never gave speeding tickets to kids that were like super young or to doctors or nurses or clergy because I know as a parent where my kids are on my insurance because they're under the age of 25. If they get a ticket, it shoots my premium up.
Oh,
So like I'm cognizant of that. Like here I am using my life experience now to deal with people out there. So if I pull a kid over, it's as a police officer, you have spirit of the law, you have letter of the law. Letter of the law is, okay, you broke the speed limit, I'm writing you a ticket. Spirit of the law is, hey, what you did was stupid. You can get into a car accident, you can kill someone else. Don't do it again. Not to mention you can mess your parents up. Okay, here's your warning. Have a nice day. Like I ultimately have the choice whether I arrest someone or I educate them and let them go. You know, and going through this training as an actor or drawing from my own life experiences as a father, as a husband, it affected my work too. So yeah, the power of voice and going through those vocal trainings, it allowed me to be able to speak to people in a different tone, a more reassuring tone, not so domineering, making them afraid of me because we live in a world where people are afraid of the police. Not that I'm, in light of everything that's going on, there are a lot of stuff that, bad, evil police officers are doing that they shouldn't be doing. But then there's still good officers out there who love their job. They love protecting and serving the people of the community, and they're human beings themselves. Their fathers, their husbands, their sons, their daughters. So I I was on that. I was on the latter half of that, and I use my own experiences, and my training as an actor. And like I said, I personally believe that I became a better person of it. My family sure as hell believes I became a better person because of it. So
hmm
that's that.
that's I
Voice.
love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I do feel like at the end of the day that why I've got this podcast, why I started my coaching company, all of that, that performance training can help us be better versions of ourselves because it's the practice where we actually question those habitual patterns to see, is it in line with what the character's saying? Is it in line with that story? And
Mhm.
then when we have the practice and the patience and the tools, in order to do that in pretend life, with these characters, then we are allowed. I like that you kept saying allowed, it allows you to, then we're allowed to actually ask ourselves better questions in our day-to-day lives and say, hey, is this pattern, or is this is my tone here helpful? Is my stances, are my tactics helpful in this situation? Am I
Right.
actually in line with what I want and how I want to be treating people, or how I want to be treated? And
Because the
yeah, have a
majority of the time,
mm-hmm,
it's not always what is said. It is how it's
yep,
said. It's like you could be playing around with a friend and you're like, fuck you, versus I'm angry at you, fuck you.
right,
They're both the same word,
yep.
or
It's
same
about
phrase, but it's said differently.
yeah, I think it's between, I think, 7 to 10% is the meaning is taken from our words, and then it's tone and body language.
Yeah,
So yeah, yep. It's good to have the tools to actually be able to have a choice in what we want to do.
yeah. When
Yeah.
you know how to master that, then you become a better communicator.
Mhm.
And better communication is needed, or great communication, let me change my words, great communication is needed to have any successful relationship, whether that's your personal relationship with your husband or wife, a business relationship with your business partner and stuff like that, or if you're sharing a scene with a fellow actor, a coworker. you know I'm going off on how you say, how you say your lines is how I'm going to respond to you. I'm
Right.
living in the moment. I'm actively listening. It's words on a paper. A script is a blueprint. That's all that it is. It's a blueprint. What happens between the two actors? It's our job to manifest. The words on the paper. It's our job to bring life to it. Okay, and it's all on what happens between those two actors. That's why you can, if you're working with a shitty actor, like it can tank your performance. I don't care how good you are.
It's
If
true. That's
if you
right.
have if you have someone like how I was when I first started training, I like your shirt. You like my shirt. Like, how do you respond to that? You know?
Right.
No. It's
That's
open
right, because it's like
communication. Great
reacting. So
communication is everything.
it is. It's so important. And just like also one other thing to add on that, where you're saying great communication improves all your relationships, and it also improves your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you can listen to other people and if you could take constructive feedback and all of that, well, then you get to share that gift with yourself too. So
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Oh my goodness. So this was just so much fun. Yeah, I'm just like it was just really fun. So I'm really appreciative that you took the time, that you were sharing your story here with everybody, all the listeners. And again, you guys, please follow him at Hiram A Murray across all platforms. See what he's up to. Check out his movies and show your support. And then, as always, if you're looking for a performance coach to help you bring more of your whole self and voice, body, and mind to your life and work, so you can be a better communicator and just have an overall better life, I'm always happy to help you. You can reach me at beyondtechniquecoaching@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, subscribe. Your 5-star reviews and your comments, of course, on Apple Podcasts really help to spread the message and get in front of as many people as possible. And then if you are financially inclined, you are more than welcome to please send some of your dollars our way at Patreon at Beyond Technique with Samantha Rund, because that helps, make the podcast and all that good stuff. So thank you so much, and stay safe and stay healthy.